name is Diana. Telling the story is not something easy because doing that every time it brings very difficult memories to all of us actually. So to tell our displacement story is kind of recalling what happened. So August 6th, 2014 considers one of the saddest day I would say in our lives because the unexpected things that we've never thought would happen, it did happen. Watching the news and what was happening in Mosul in Syria, we've never thought that our turn would come to be driven out of our homes, let's say our villages, our towns. So on August 6th, when a couple of missiles fell into many houses, killed 3 children and a woman in her 30s who was engaged to get married. It was a very sad moment. It was an alarm for us, but still, lots of people start marching to leave. But as sisters, we thought it will be good to stay. We thought it will be like the first displacement that we have in June, that will go for a couple of days and come. So after the prior spoke with us, we said to her, no, we're staying this time. Until 10 o'clock, the word was, we'll stay, we'll not leave this time. But after we saw that the Peshmerga were taking their uniform off and people were marching by walking or by cars, so it was like, okay, something is wrong here. And we got some phone calls from good friends telling us, you should leave because this time it's really dangerous. We put all our trust in Peshmerga because they promised us to protect us, and until the last minute we were so secure they will protect us. But when we saw them taking their uniform off, we thought that the time of danger has really arrived. So the priorists gathered us and the decision was made by the General Council, who were given less than half an hour to pack whatever we want to take. So most of us were kind of shocked. We didn't take anything with us, just a pair of clothing. So many of us forgot their documents. And the worst of that was, speaking of over than 60,000 people from Karakosh and from Nineveh who were displaced themselves by ISIS, marching on the roads. When we got into the street, we saw thousands and thousands of cars, people marching, lots of people walking, loading people in trucks, loading people like the 5 persons vehicle. There were about 8 to 10 people there, hearing children shouting, crying, very afraid. So an hour distance from Karakosh to Erbil, it took us 10 hours. So from 11:30, we didn't get until next morning, exhausted with no water. We're speaking of August, then the heat is unbearable in Iraq in August, over 100 degrees, without water, hungry. By the time we got here, it was more horrible to see people scattered everywhere like a sheep without shepherd, on the streets, on the yards, and the churches, everywhere. Seeing children crying without food, infants, because they left with they were panicked. We were panicked when they said ISIS got into the village, you should leave. So lots of people left with their nightgowns on, actually. Some they left with their nightgowns on. So as soon as we got here, the priests and the sisters, let's say the church in general, took over, could not see people like this suffering. So we started, at first finding places for them. Tents were installed for them. Churches were open for them on the second day, not the first day actually. So neither of us were prepared, neither us or the churches here with the capacity of those people, of over than 60,000 people. So it was horrible moments, and still to see what we left behind. Lots of people that would say they lived in mansions. They had so much, and within a few hours they turned to be homeless with no shelter, with no food, with no necessity of light. So it was like for the first month kind of a shock. This is not happening, this is happening. After a while, like, we recognize that our displacement is not for a couple days, it might take over years and years. So then organizations started coming, helping us, but still the question for us, is it enough to provide food for people and homes, or we need something more to have dignity? Let's say we did lose our dignity here. We have been humiliated in so many ways. So we're living day by day, but the fact is, deep down, this is not the way that human beings live, to be deprived of everything. We're living, but it's kind of living into a cage that we don't have this power or this energy or this strength to stretch our wings wherever we want, because we're very limited. Our kids are deprived from school. Now they start going to school 2 hours or 3 hours. It's nothing a day, they won't learn anything. Our college students are deprived from school, and as a Christian would say, would love education. So what they are doing, ISIS, what's doing to us is they are killing a new generation, because one generation won't get educated is going to affect other education. So as sisters, we're trying by all means to find, schools, kindergartens, anything that can relate to people to help them to be educated. Besides that, we've been working with health, because the hospitals here did not have the capacity for this big amount of people. So we started 2 clinics here and 1 in The Hague. So that's been helping. Like, for example, as I've been working on the clinic, we receive between, like, in 2 clinics, 500 to 600 patients per day. That's a big load for, a small clinic to manage, but I think with God's providence and with benefactors have been going day by day, but still seeing the situation of people, giving the circumstances for living, I would say we're not considered as a human being. For ISIS, or for even, I would say, for the government, or for even for the UN, the United Nations, we're just numbers. We're not considered as a human being, and I would say we can't do anything, because Jesus said, whoever beat you, give him your other cheek. But would say God is the one who knows how, to treat everyone by their works, and that's how we count. Every suffering ends with resurrection, as Sister Mary Therese said yesterday, and there's no sufferings end with death. It's always their resurrection. We don't know how long that would take, but we know there is a light shining in the future. Thank you.